I love to discover new-to-me authors, don't you? When I heard the name Lewis Jones, I thought I should know this guy, but I really just couldn't place him. I heard rumors that he published really easy-to-do but hard-hitting magic, the kind that actually fooled Penn and Teller. Once I got into the book that we're going to cover, I realized why I should be excited about this author, and I'm going to share that with you. So back to the question, who is this Lewis Jones guy, and why didn't I already know it? He was an underground magical legend in the UK. Frankly, I should have known him. He contributed to The Apocalypse in the 90s, and he was regularly featured in Steve Beam's semi-automatic card trick series. With a resume like that, it should start to give you ideas about the type of magic that you can expect from an author like him. Hard-hitting, yet relatively simple to do. And magic that uses a variety of props. You're probably picking up on the fact that I'm using the past tense to refer to Lewis Jones. Sadly, he passed away in September of 2021. He was almost 97 years old. So he had a lifetime to create some amazing magic that he's sharing with us. After I reviewed the Nick Trost Subtle Card Creations book, Volume 1, I was corresponding with Charlie Randall of H&R Books, the publisher. He mentioned to me that he had recently republished a book by the late Mr. Jones that might interest all of us as erudite magicians. He was kind enough to send me a copy so that I could take a look at it and share it with all of you. I could hardly wait for the package to get here, so I checked almost every day. I did a little bit of preliminary research online about the magician and saw nothing but really great things that were said, so I eagerly awaited the arrival of my package with this book. What I discovered absolutely amazed me. This episode of Erudite Magic is being sponsored by my friend Don over at Don's Magic and Books. Don not only has the subject of today's video, he also has a ton of other great books in his online bookstore. If you head over to his website, and I've dropped a link down in the description and comments below, you can check out everything that he has in stock right now because it's constantly changing as people are buying these books at amazing prices. To help you get some of the books that you've been looking for, Don is offering you 10% off this week via the code ERUDITE at checkout. That's right, that code is good for 10% off the lowest marked prices on the website. And you'll get free shipping if you purchase $20 or more of media items in the United States. If you're an international buyer, he has an option for you to check on exact shipping to your location. He does have a limited supply of the subject of today's review, so be sure to get your copy before he runs out and while you can still save with code ERUDITE at donsmagicandbooks.com. The book I received is Seventh Heaven by Lewis Jones. This is a 400-plus page second edition hardback book. This is a revised and re-illustrated version of the 2004 publication, which itself was a compilation of 7 of Mr. Jones' previously published softback booklets. Apparently, based on my research, Lewis Jones published a lot of his magic in limited-run softback books. The original books were in such high demand that they rapidly went out of print, and then when the compilation came out, it rapidly went out of print again. And finally, this second edition is back in print as of 2021. I mentioned that this was revised. It's a second edition. Before Lewis Jones passed, he worked with Charlie Randall and H&R Books to ensure that the book got back into print, because it's been in demand for quite some time, based on how much magicians love his work. In this revised edition, some of the descriptions have been updated or tightened just a little bit, and the layout has been tweaked. But you're still getting all of the same awesome magic, just in the latest and greatest format. From what I understand, the previous version had some pictures, while this one has line drawings done by the incomparable Tony Dunn. That's about the book, but what is the book? And this is where it gets really exciting. To me, if I was drawing a parallel and you've never heard of Lewis Jones, you would say that this is like Nick Trost writing about something other than just playing cards. Now, I don't mean any disrespect to Mr. Jones or saying that he's exactly like Nick Trost. I'm just saying that if you don't already know the name, I'm trying to draw a comparison that would evoke an image of the type of material that he's writing. And what I mean by it is that, like Nick Trost, so much of the material in this book is highly accessible to the average magician. Nothing's really knuckle-busting or requiring strenuous sleight of hand. In fact, he has tailored the material to emphasize subtlety over sleights. The key word that just kept jumping off the page at me was streamlining. He's making the effects more simple and understandable instead of trying to make it more complex. For sure, he cares more about effect rather than the method, but he wants to make sure that the method is as simple as possible. So he's taken a number of traditional effects and attempted to simplify the setup, the sleights, the plots, or all of the above. Now, where he differs from Nick Trost is in the style of writing and in the subject matter he covers. As far as the style, he's a little bit more long-winded than the typical Nick Trost write-up, but it's not nearly as long-winded as, say, a Simon Aronson, so don't be put off by that description. He's just very thorough, and you won't have to worry about not understanding how the effect works. And another key difference is that he covers such a variety of different types of magic in this book. As alluded to previously, it's not just playing cards, although a huge chunk of the book is playing cards, and there will be plenty to satisfy the card-only magician. But there's so much more. There are book tests for the practicing mentalist. He uses objects borrowed from the participants. He uses business card, lists, dollar bills, coins, diaries, calendars, and even earrings, etc. The card material itself is very diverse. You'll learn things like quick ace productions, or if you prefer, he has several ways that the participant can actually cut to the aces. He gives you story tricks, and he even has the easiest memorized deck you'll likely ever encounter. Hint, hint, it really doesn't require much mental dexterity. He has coincidences, predictions, gambling routines. There are even items that are included just to poke fun with your magician friends. In short, there are well over 100 effects in these pages. Plus, there's a section of utility moves in the back. Now, these differ from the typical appendix of sleights because these aren't your typical, here's a double lift or an overhand shuffle or an Elmsley count. It's really mostly sleights that he has tweaked or come up with that are original to him as the author. For example, he gives his own take on the Mexican turnover, and he has his own version of a red-black separation from a shuffled deck. There's a clever false turnover of a business card, several different types of peaks, a couple of different controls, etc. There are some neat applications, and you'll likely be able to adopt some of these sleights or techniques into your own existing work, as well as applying it to what you'll find within the pages of this book. Because of the size of the book and the variety of the material, I think it's impossible for me to cover everything that's in there, so let me just give you a few of the key ideas that jumped off the page at me. Specifically, I appreciated his thinking about the effect. Mr. Jones seems to have an uncanny ability to figure out how the participants feel about how the effect should look, and he focuses and tailors his presentations to relate to that. What is the shortest path in the participant's mind to go from point A to the point where the magic happens? For example, with an ace cutting routine, he talks about how you really shouldn't have to touch a bunch of the cards after you've already put down 4 different piles to cut to the 4 aces. At that point, you should just be able to turn over the top cards, and they should be the 4 aces. There shouldn't be a lot of other touching or handling of the cards. Or, for example, when you're performing a book test, why would you have to fiddle with the book first before you get into the routine? So it's thinking like that that I found to be very valuable and appealing within this book. In many cases, he's taken an existing classic effect and thought about what some of the pitfalls are of other handlings out there, and then addressed at the very beginning of the write-up what he didn't like about those handlings and what he was attempting to solve or streamline with his own handling. And that's how each of the effects is typically listed out. He'll start off with the effect, where it came from, so you'll get some bibliographical information about where you can find more or the original write-up. Then the parts of the handling that he didn't really like and what he did to fix it with his own handling. He also spells out what the effect is, so if you're reading through, you can glance through the effect and decide, is it something that you think you'd see yourself performing, or can you just skip on to the next trick? Then he obviously walks you through his method. It's all very straightforward and serviceable to teach you the effect. So are there any drawbacks to this book? It's interesting that I use the word draw because while the new edition has supposedly been re-illustrated, I still found it to be very text dense. Sure, there are some illustrations and they do enhance the reading experience, but I think there are times where there aren't any drawings or anything to break up the text and it becomes a little bit dry. That's not to say that the book is boring. There are plenty of amusing anecdotes and tricks that will keep you interested. Another minor gripe is that there was no index. I know, you've heard me say that a lot. I don't think that every magic book needs an index, but when it covers such a wide variety of different props, I find it useful to be able to go to the back and look for that one item or prop that you were looking for that trick. Of course, the table of contents is quite serviceable and you won't have any problem navigating the book. You may think that because Mr. Jones emphasizes subtleties over sleights and streamlined presentations that this stuff won't really be fooling because it's just self-working. But actually you'd be wrong. In fact, Rick Lax borrowed very heavily from Mr. Jones during one of his presentations in which he fooled Penn and Teller on Fool Us. And Paul Daniels actually performed a Lewis Jones creation on one of his TV specials. I think it's really interesting that H&R Books has put out both this book and the Nick Trost books because they're making a name for themselves by putting high-quality books out there that have easy-to-do yet fooling magic. So who do I think would like this book? If you're a fan of easy-to-do magic that covers a wide variety of props, then I think you'll like this book. And on the plus side, you may find streamlined versions of tricks that you've always wanted to do but may have been just outside your grasp. So ultimately, who was Lewis Jones? He was a reductionist, an underground legend, and someone who's definitely worthy of teaching you some great magic. I want to thank everyone out there who has clicked on the super thanks button to send me a small donation. It really means a lot and is very kind of you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. As always, my erudite friends, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, keep reading.